Hello my dear YouTuber friends, and I do hope you're all keeping well. Welcome to this new video, and this is a bit different from my flight simming videos. This is a 3+ year review or overview of my e-bike. Has it been holding up well? What issues, if any, have I had with it? Do I still enjoy it? And all that kind of thing. I'm also going to bust some myths and give some more facts generally about e-bikes. Okay, so let's not dilly-dally. Let's get on with the video. Okay, so let's get straight into some maintenance issues, if any, that I've had over the past few years. Before I go on to that, let's just address the elephant in the room. Yes, this is a bedroom. It's actually a room I'm renting currently from Airbnb on the south coast of England. I'm just waiting for my flat to become available, then I'll move into that in a month or so. But at the moment, that's what I'm doing. I'm just renting this room nice and cheap, and I've got my e-bike with me here. Let's talk about the maintenance issues. So what have I had to do over the past few years? Well, the first major expense was replacing the battery. Now, the battery slots in the back there. It's out at the moment. It's recharging, and I'll talk more later about the recharge time and costs for that. I'm just recharging that. It's been recharging now for about the past hour or so. But after a couple of years of use, it's pretty much the identical battery that came with the e-bike I replaced it with. After a couple of years of use, my old battery just wasn't giving the same amount of power. After a 4-mile journey or so, the battery would wear out, the old one. With a new battery, you can do at least twice as much of that distance, so over 10 miles, which this one does, or has been doing. So yeah. But after 2 years, I simply had to replace the old battery. There was still a little bit of juice left in the old battery, it just wasn't giving me the range I required. So that's what I did, I replaced it. Now I'll link where I got my old battery from Amazon, my new battery from Amazon, down below in the description. Cost me just over £100. So think about that. The only major expense I've had to pay on this over the past few years is a new battery of just over £100. For me, that's good value. If you have a car, take it in for an MOT service, you have to repair it, replace the tyres maybe, I'll come onto that in a moment with the e-bike. It's going to cost you a lot more, at least 3 to 4 times the amount. So yeah, £100 over a period of 3 years, I don't think that's too bad at all. But yeah, a battery life for an e-bike, I'm going to estimate it at maximum a couple of years, then you really should replace it so you're getting the best performance from your e-bike. What else have I had to do? I've had a couple of flat tyres. My front tyre went flat. Took it to my local Halfords, which is a bike shop here in England. They replaced it whilst I replaced the inner tube for about £10, so not too bad. I've had the whole back tyre, the actual tyre itself, replaced on the back because it was really wearing down and it was damaged. There was holes in the old one. That cost me around £20 from my local bike shop. And that's pretty much the only expenses I've had with this e-bike. I've not had to do anything else as yet. My bike shop did tell me, my local bike shop did tell me that, you know, my brake pads, I think it's the brake pads are running a bit thin, they could be replaced. Maybe the pedals as well, or something of that sort. So there's a bit of maintenance left to do in it. He said he can do that for about £80, and that would be like a whole new refurb for the e-bike. But all in all, over 3 years of use, compare that to car costs, and of course I'm not paying for petrol. I'll come more on to how much it does cost to charge. It doesn't cost much at all to charge the battery. All in all, I don't think the cost is too bad at all. for what I've had to pay over the past few years, maybe £140, £150 just to keep the e-bike up and running, so not too bad at all. Okay, so with my issues and maintenance costs out of the way, let's now go on to facts, busting myths and talking about facts about e-bikes and this e-bike in general. Okay, so let's talk about some facts and bust some myths with e-bikes. Let's start with the battery first, and it's pretty much just recharged, so that's fine. As you can see, if I press this button here, I've got it back in, and you put it in and you lock it with this key mechanism here so it stays locked in. So I've got that locked at the moment. So effectively, now with this battery, like I said, I've had it probably for about a year now as well, or maybe just under. I'm getting a range at full charge and at full power. I'll show you the power settings on the actual e-bike at the front there in a moment at this particular e-bike. Getting a range of over 10 miles. Now I used to live in a place, it was a few miles from work, I can get backwards and forwards to work in no problem. On my days off I went to the gym, I had to ride from one side of the town to the other, and that was about 4 to 5 miles. I'm going to estimate it at 5 miles there, 5 miles back. I could do that easily on one charge and at full power. So let's now actually just take you to the power settings here. So full power on this one, we'll be putting this with the plus key here right to the top, and that will give you about 15 miles per hour speed. Full power, full charge, I can get 10 miles on that quite easily. With a bit extra, and there'll still be some juice left in the battery. So what I would often do, go to the gym, later on I would go back out to the shop, so maybe even 12 to 30 mile range, which is what they say about a 20 kilometre range with a full charge of battery. So that stands true. Interestingly, I was living in London recently, didn't take my e-bike with me, I had this in storage. But I was living in Camden, maybe it's about 5-6 miles out from the centre of London. I could have easily cycled. If I was working in the centre of London in an office, I wasn't. I was doing some charity work with the homeless, so we did go to the centre, but for different reasons. I could easily have got to the centre of London from Camden, 5 or 6 miles. Probably take me 20 to 30 minutes, maybe more like 30 minutes. A bit risky riding the e-bike in London, which is why I didn't take it with me. Could have easily done that, took the battery with me, put the charger there, that's the charger, that's all it is. Easily put that in a rucksack, charge it on the other end if necessary, and then you can do the ride back. So it's very durable. But certainly in small towns and cities, you can get from one end to the other with no issues at all. Let's just talk about those power settings. Each e-bike is going to be different. I'll link the site I got this. Now it's more expensive now. It's a couple of £100 more, the e-bike now. That could be due to inflation or simply because they've become more popular. It's now £500 for this model. I'd still recommend it at that price, but I got mine for just over 300, so I got a real bargain on mine. Power settings, if you got it on, if you got it off, basically it acts like a normal bike. Now it's a heavy old thing. I'll talk more about the weight of this later. It's a bit of a Heflon, this bike. So to cycle, it takes a lot more effort than it would on its small tyres. Not really ideal if you're going to use it just as a normal bike, and that's going to defeat the purpose. But if you have that turned off, that's what it will just behave like, a normal bike, and you've got gears here on the side. Really wouldn't recommend this one for that purpose. Turn it on 0, still acts like a normal bike. You don't get any assisted power. Put it on to 1, that will give you about, I'll say 4 to 5 miles per hour, nice slow ride. Put it on 2, which is what I had it on yesterday because I took it out of storage and I wasn't used to it. Gives you about 7 to 10 miles an hour. So if you don't want to drain the battery or you're in no rush, that's an ideal setting. Top setting, full whack, around 15 miles an hour. You're going to get from A to B in about the same time it takes to drive, in fact. I used to live in a place to get from my old place to work. I've driven there, and I've also used the e-bike. It took me maybe a couple of minutes more, only a couple of minutes more on the e-bike on that top setting. So there you go, that's a power setting. Each one's going to be different. This power bar, it's never behaved quite the way I expected it, so I'm not going to go into this. Apparently it's meant to light up if you're using more power of the battery. At the moment I'm not using it and it's fully lit, or maybe it's the other way around. I've never quite understood that power gauge setting and the instruction manual that came with this one. I don't know where that instruction manual is at the moment, but the instruction manual doesn't really explain that in the best way, so I generally just ignore that and I just go with the feel of what the e-bike's doing. While we're on the subject of power settings, I might as well just keep that on, it doesn't matter for now. On the subject of power settings, if you have tall hills, this particular e-bike model doesn't deal so well with tall, or steep rather, hills. So if you're going up a steep gradient, yes, you're not using much effort, because basically you turn the power on to whatever power setting you want. Just turn the pedals here. Just turn them, so just cycle them gently, using no effort, and zoom, you're off at 15 miles an hour. And it will kick in the motor when you turn the pedals. The motor's on the front tyre here. Generally, this type of e-bike, if you've got tall hills, you're not going to find much benefit. You won't be using much effort yourself. So if you're struggling and you're using a lot of effort on a normal bike, it's going to be slightly easier on this, but it's going to be slow going on steep hills. Gradual hills, or sort of normal city town hills, you're going to have no problem, and it's a lot easier on an e-bike, granted. When there's big wind, I live on the south coast, we had 3 or 4 big storms last year, gusts maybe up to 100 miles per hour, some of them. I was riding home in one of them, 60 to 80 miles, and it was teeming with rain. If the wind's against you, which it generally is when you're cycling, let's face it, you're going to find that, you're not going to be going forward at a good momentum because the wind's pushing against you. You're using no physical force to go forward. You're just relying on the battery and motor. If it's against you, it can slow you down, but I do have an easier time on an e-bike regardless. And once the wind lets up for a second or two, you back off on that 15 mile an hour. So if you can avoid the wind for a few seconds, you can generally get there quicker on an e-bike, but it can slow you down. If you've got a wind, put my hand there, coming right against you, obviously it's going to slow your momentum down, unless you can make yourself a bit smaller or something, squirt down in the seat, trying to get sort of your head down so the wind doesn't have too much of an effect, but it will slow you down. And that's just really the general principles of how wind works when you're on a bike anyway. But just keep that in mind. What else can I mention here? So yeah, battery power performance, you can get a decent mileage from it. With this e-bike, and with many others, at least this one, if you stop moving forward on the pedals, once the power setting's on, you'll find that these pedals loosened and you just gradually just turning them. If you stop turning them, the motor cuts out, and that's a safety feature. So if you stop pedaling, basically the motor cuts out, you can stop quicker. You do have to pedal to have that motor kicked in. It's a strange feeling when you start it, because you start pedaling on a normal bike, it takes a while to get up to speed. If you've got it on the high setting, as soon as you start pedaling, you're going at 15 miles an hour, it just shoots forward. It's quite an unnerving feeling when you first get on an e-bike, and an exhilarating feeling as well, I must say. But it's a feeling like no other. If you've not tried it, I fully recommend it. Rather. Well, I was going to talk about this particular e-bike folds. You've got various folds. Actually, I'll show you on screen there what it's like folded. It's about 1/3 of a size, so you can easily store it away. So as you can see there, the size of it when it's folded. Let's just take that off screen. Problem is with this e-bike and with many others, you've got many electrical parts, you've got the motor at the front, if you've got the battery in, that adds a couple of pounds. This is really solid. It's about 3 times the weight of a normal bike, so if you've got a racer bike it's going to be a lot heavier. When the gyms closed over lockdown, I was using this e-bike as a weight, so lifting it with both hands. I actually damaged my stomach doing that, and I had to have a small operation because of that. Do be careful with the weight of this, particularly if you're not very strong or you have issues, stomach issues or back issues or something of that sort. It's a heavy beast. Doesn't look heavy, but it's at least 3 times heavier than a normal bike of that size, or simply just a normal bike. So it is something to be aware of. I know somebody commented on one of my other e-bike videos that they actually injured themselves, that they were pissed off because they had to lift it and it's a really heavy bike to lift. Just be aware of that. The only other myth I want to dispel here, or debunk, the top speed of a UK e-bike is 15.5 miles per hour. That's the top legal speed. If you're going faster than that, you need a license, because you're effectively riding something akin to you know, a moped or scooter or something of that sort. A moped generally, or Vespa, that type of thing. So the top legal speed is 15.5 miles an hour. If you see an e-bike going much quicker than that, they've probably adapted it or bought it overseas where the laws may be different. I wouldn't go down that path personally, because if the police stop you, you're banged to rights. If you don't have a license for that type of e-bike, you could be in trouble. For this e-bike, this standard e-bike or anything similar like that, the top speed, a UK e-bike, basically, you do not need a license. You don't need a license for it at all. So people have asked, do I need a license? Even people on the street have asked me, do you need a license to ride that? No, because it's topped up at top speed is 15.5 miles per hour. Typically goes at 15 miles per hour. So just be aware that you don't need a license to ride it. Another thing I would like to say, there is a bit of noise from the motor when you're pedaling. A little bit of noise. Not too bad. You know, it's not like it's gonna, not like a motorbike or moped. Just a little bit of noise, of course, with that little motor running at the front there. Just sounds like an electric bike. Sounds like one of those electric buggers, basically, when you're riding it along. That's the best way I can explain it. Okay, so with those facts and myths debunked, let's take you to my conclusion. Okay, so I've gathered on enough. Some people are going to love this video because I've done a lot of talking. So let's just take you to my conclusion, a quick, brief conclusion. Do I recommend it? Yep, absolutely. If you've not ridden an e-bike before, it's an enjoyable experience. I'm going to go out in a moment, in fact. I'm going to really enjoy it. I always enjoy cycling this thing. People hate, one person certainly on my other videos have hated that I say it's superb, incredible. It really is. But it's simply just an enjoyable experience to ride. If you can get it for around the 300 mark. Now, someone else mentioned that, you know, these sorts of cheaper e-bikes don't last. Well, I've just dispelled that myth, haven't I? Or debunked that theory. It's lasted me for over 3 years, still goes pretty quickly as long as you look after it, maintain it, obviously keep the tyres pumped up, replace the battery, and goodness knows what. Did mention before the battery cost me just over £100, it was more like £160, but still not too bad at all. And something else I'll just quickly mention, you can ride this in the rain. I've rode it in severe rain. When you get to the other end, just dry the battery off, dry the electric parts off on the bike, just give it a wipe over, and it's absolutely fine. Next day, just put a bit of oil on the sort of chains and goodness knows what, so it all remains in top spec. So there you go, that's my 3+ year review of my e-bike. Let me know your thoughts below. Do you have an e-bike? Do you have this model? How's yours holding up? Let me know your thoughts below, give the video a like if you've enjoyed it, subscribe for more mainly flight sim videos, but I will do the odd e-bike video, and I'll see you soon.